America.
Yo, I was gonna.
Well.
You could leave them up and.
Nah, I don't really do. I don't do all that.
That's good. How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing well, bud.
I already know why you didn't vote for Trump.
Well, I mean, I feel like I've never been in a position on somebody else's life to kind of describe my stance. I've been thinking about, like, what are the big reasons right now? And I feel like I have, like, a lot of reasons that I've thought about over the course of the last year or so. But I'd say, like, the big ones right now, why I don't support him, is because of, the perceived threats that I see from him to the checks and balances offered by our federal government, potentially the constitutional threat, as well as a threat to global relations. And I mean, like, there's other concerns there. Like, I also really want women to have access to abortion. That's one of my big ones. And maybe we could start there. I think that is a threat to
abortion,
checks and balances. I think that he is a constitutional threat, and I think that access to abortion should be federally regulated.
Just on that one, Dean, the whole idea is that I have more faith in our system than a lot of people do, and I understand the fear because the media on either side, no matter who's president, if it's a Democrat or Republican or in between, the opposite side is going to fearmonger, and we all fall for it. But I do have a ton of faith in our checks and balances system. I know it's being tested right now, and it's scary, and people have the right to be afraid. I get it, but I do, honestly, my heart of hearts, believe that the system will prevail at all costs. And if it doesn't, I'm willing to pick up arms to the opposite side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that, like, I understand your point, like, the system won't fail. But I think, like, the fact that you can admit, which, by the way, I do appreciate it, that Donald Trump is kind of stress testing his checks and balances more than any other president we've had in modern American history is a issue.
I feel it will make us stronger in the end.
And I think I've also seen, like, a couple of those stress tests fail. Like, for instance, like, ignoring orders from judges and negating due process for migrants. I kind of feel like that's, like, a failure of the checks and balances because, well, what's going to check him? Like a lawsuit that's going to hit his bank account like a year and a half from now for ignoring a court order last week. Like, I don't know.
More getting impeached and removed from office, honestly, if he goes too far.
Yeah, that would be all favor for if he was actually doing something that's inherent going against the Constitution. I would agree with that, but we're talking about a circuit court judge trying to rule on the federal government on deportations of known criminals out of this country. I mean, what are we really, why are we going to keep them here? What are we really going to do with them here? They've caused a problem in this country for the last couple years. The last administration, come on, let's be honest, Dean, they've lied to the American people, up, down, left, right, to Sunday. And I'm sorry, your old buddies, Chris and Harry, really perpetuated and stuck with those lies over the last couple of years. I know you're not friends with them anymore, but I'm going to call that out.
Yeah, you have been chill, Dean, so we'll give you props on that.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
And I'm going to say one thing about you, Dean. I respect the shit out of you, 100%, for calling out Chris and Dean for what's going on with them. 100%, I commend you for that. You and Parker.
Yep, moral win.
Hey, I appreciate that, you guys. I see, from my perspective, like, I also see that as, like, a bit hypocritical from you guys. Like, I think that it's cool that you can acknowledge that was wrong and it deserves to be called out. But then I feel like in like the same breath and, like, fail to acknowledge, like, the fact that Donald Trump was accused and held liable for the rape of Eugene Carroll.
Let's be honest, though. There's so many holes in that case, Dean. Let's just be honest.
So when
I talk about that
I've
all the
had
time.
friends in the same. I've had friends in real life that went through the same shit. So
when you say
they're not friends anymore.
When you say holes in the case, do you mean inconsistencies in the story or lack of evidence?
Inconsistencies in her story. I know what you'll bring up, that there's a picture of Eugene Carroll and Donald Trump together, and he said, he thought it was his ex-wife, whatever. But the fact that she couldn't tell you what year it was, when it happened, what time it was. She accused 19 other men. He tried to give his DNA within the 3-year window. The judge shot it down. It doesn't hold water in my eyes. And I know we can bring up the 26 accusations against Trump, too. I'm not victim blaming whatsoever. I just don't see a realistic story and
so I've
evidence.
always been looking for the other 19 accusations that she made, and I've never found them.
It was in her own book.
I know in her book she accused one other man.
No, in the book she said 1999 and accused the one other guy, the what was it? Some CEO. I forgot what the exact what he was a CEO for.
I don't think she did accuse 19 other men in her book.
It's literally in the book. I brought it up.
I know.
It was mentioned, but she didn't go into detail. She was just in passing.
Oh, okay. So she just said that she did.
Yes, sir.
Interesting. Okay. Well, anyways, like I think like the hypocrisy that I observed is between like the acceptance of the accusations made against Harry, with the denial of those against Trump. But I mean, I want to be able to talk about.
I don't deny anything that you done.
We have Harry in 4K.
When you have Harry, I mean, I think that the claims made against Harry go extend beyond like the messages and the screenshots that were observed, but also into claims that like they said if they weren't to be exclusive, then like they wouldn't send nudes, in which the claim was been that
I don't really
it's still wrong on how he did it. I don't care that.
I think it's
what
wrong.
Happened. I'm not gonna sit here and say that I wasn't a 20-year-old guy before, that I didn't have multiple girls talking to me at the same time. That's not what I'm calling out. It's how he goes about it and talks about Trump being a manipulator and him verbatim doing exactly.
You have to make both sides of your life match. Unfortunately, even though we know that's not realistic human tendencies, I'm not holding him accountable for that. I was 22, at 20 as well, and we all went through similar things, whether it's intentional or not. Looking for love in the wrong places or in the right places. It's not so much that. It's just if you're gonna be such a proponent for women's advocacy, it's better if you have a choice to make a match. So just that you don't break hearts, I guess, would be my argument from an emotional standpoint.
We probably have more agreements than disagreements there.
Absolutely.
But
I don't hate the guy for that.
Trying to get back on track here. So, like, the big reasons why I don't support Trump today is I believe that he serves as a threat to the Constitution, a threat to checks and balances. I think he's a really bad guy. I think he's bad for foreign affairs. And I think that all women and girls in America deserve access to abortion, and the fact that he influenced Roe v. Wade to be overturned was harmful, and the fact that he does not support congressional legislation to reprotect access to abortion for all 100 million American women and girls is also.
We'll have to skip the fourth point just because of moral standpoint between half the nation and whatnot. Like, to each their own, respect where they come from, but that's going to have to be settled locally, and if people get behind it enough, federally again, with a constitutional amendment. It would just be a waste of air to battle that one. But we covered the first one already. Second and third.
So I think it should be protected with congressional legislation, and that's what Kamala Harris ran on. So that's why I supported her.
Trump was 12 weeks, which is a very moderate point, I would believe, but also we understand that that is too soon for most people to tell. So it's not also realistic from just a devil's advocate standpoint. But once, I think, you have to pick a point at some.
Yeah, sure.
Whether you're, insemination or birth, there is a happy medium somewhere, and I hope one day as a country we can reach that point.
So my position is that every single woman and girl in America should have elective lethal access to abortion until 20 weeks. Meanwhile, great victims and medical exceptions should have access at any point.
Absolutely.
And I think that should be.
Yeah,
and I think that should be federally protected. And the reason I think that should be federally protected is because I generally see infringing upon somebody's bodily autonomy without good reason to be a human rights violation. And because I don't think there's any good reason for an abortion ban outside of those parameters, I'd find an abortion ban under those parameters to be a human rights violation. And
I would say you're pretty moderate on those views, and I can respect that.
My whole stance on the whole abortion situation is I'm absolutely happy that it got left up to the states. I'm in favor of a 12-week abortion ban in my eyes, because most women do not know that they are pregnant up until at least 8 to 10 weeks in my eyes and in my experience, and everyone I've been around. Yes, it's my own experience. And also the fact that I'm happy that Donald Trump voted down a 6-week abortion ban that was imposed by Ron DeSantis in my home state of Florida, which I think is absolutely disgusting. Leaving it up to the state absolutely is a great thing in my eyes. I think, honestly, abortion should be protected on a federal level for incest or grape, which incest and grape are the same thing in my eyes. It's one form of grape. But leaving it up to the states absolutely shows that there are more evil people within the states that we govern that we don't pay attention to. We only vote on a partisan level, either where I'm just voting for people in my local municipality as well as my governor because red or blue. When you put it down to the state level, it holds everybody accountable to that state instead of just saying, okay, I'm a registered Republican, I'm only going to vote for a Republican. Because let's be honest, when was the last time anybody really just picked up anything within your state and looked at who was running and what they were running on? Examples I could choose: Texas, Ohio, Florida, states where abortion practically is not an option. And I think abortion, there should be abortion within terms, 100%, and
So why do you
protections for rape or incest.
so why do you think it should be on the state level?
Like I said, because it makes everybody accountable and holds everybody accountable who they're putting into power within their states.
It holds people accountable.
Well, you can make a moral argument that that's not good enough for statewide, but it will eventually get resolved in the interim. Nobody freaking pays attention. Most people in the United States are straight ticket voters. But
so
it does, on a devil's advocate argument, in the interim, until it does get squashed and becomes another nationwide debate, maybe at the next election, maybe at the following, it will force people to friggin' pay attention and vote accordingly. Like, even if they're Republican and are more in support, maybe you'll have people that switch ticket on certain items. Just a devil's argument.
Yeah, I'll kind of like reframe my position. So I think rescinding it from the federal level to the state level has caused millions of human rights violations. And the reason why I voted for Kamala Harris, at least one of them, was to end those millions of human rights violations that are now continued under Donald Trump's presidency, as he does not intend to protect access to abortion under the federal level.
Well, Dean, there are at least 40% of the population that would say the same thing, the opposite direction. So just for
but like people, I mean, what percentage of the population supported legal access to slavery, racial segregation, or denied a woman's access to vote? I don't think just because
I'm so glad we weren't a part of that.
I think just because a nation is divided on an issue, that doesn't mean that should thereby be left up to the people in the states. In fact, historically,
I understand your logic, but the moral equivalency is passing me over. We can all agree that slavery is bad.
Well,
but
I'm
it's
actually
still
not
up for debate. If
Trust me, I watched your debate with Emily Wilson. You're not going to pull that card on me if slavery should be left to the state.
No, that's not what I'm asking you.
No, I know. I've watched you plenty. I know your tactics are.
The point that I'm making is you guys are saying, well, because a lot of people in the country disagree with me, that it should be left up to the state. No,
that's not the crux of the argument. That's just the interim. And
so then
since that is the current case, let's make the best of it.
Well, I'm saying it didn't have to be the current case because if Kamala Harris won, it would be protected at the federal level.
Maybe not, because the Supreme Court was still stacked.
Well, this had nothing to do with the Supreme Court and all to do with congressional legislation.
When they undid Roe v. Wade?
No, when she'd reinstituted it as federal law.
If she had
let's
gained
just,
the
let's
House
just
and
be
Senate,
honest,
she might have.
Yeah, there would be a
Even
lot
if
of
she won, that
factors
wasn't
that
gonna
would
be the
go
case.
into play for her to get that done. And let's be honest, Kamala got handed the shit end of the stick and only had 4 months to prepare, and she came out swinging. Don't get me wrong, there were a lot of good things that she said and that she was running on. I'll say that all day long. But like I said, I'm realistically looking at it, and if that would have really got implemented the way that it was, because let's say she did win the presidency, we still would have won the House and we still would have won the Senate, even though it's a small win. Yeah, well, how do we know?
So my claim would be is like, if she had like the nation's interest to win the presidency, then it's likely that we would have had the nation's interest in Congress. But what I will say here is, if you're just kind of like positing the critique that, well, maybe she wouldn't have been able to get this passed because she would have had a difficult time getting it through Congress. Like, this could kind of be said for any president in history with any piece of legislation ever. Mm-hmm. Like for instance, like imagine if like the roles were reversed and you were on my live telling me why you like Trump, and you like seemingly had a good argument that one of his policies would have been great for America and you could really defend that. And that was just like, well, what if he couldn't get past the Congress?
Well, I mean, look at what happened in 2016. They won the House. The Republicans won the House, but no legislation really went forward because everybody that ran on Trump's coattails turned his back and didn't help him get pushed through in his first presidency.
I think a big reason.
Dean, we're not saying you should give up your fight, dude, at all. You should keep up your fight.
No, absolutely.
If that's what you truly believe. I'm just saying, realistically, it wasn't an option this go around. Even if she did squeak a lead, it wasn't going to be in her favor to actually get bills passed through the House and Senate. But I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, don't give up your fight if that's truly what's in your heart. So that's not the
I think that she actually would have been like a pretty effective policymaker in Congress. The reason why I say that is because, well, she demonstrated an ability to kind of be a little bit more bipartisan than many politicians, just like through changing her views to allow for efficacy in Congress. Like one of the big ones would be like her stand anti-fracking, anti-drilling, pro-renewable energy stances in 2019. But then after like 4 years as the vice president, she came out the other end, passing the Inflation Reduction Act, which was a multi-million-dollar investment in renewable energy resources. Yes, but it was also a multi-million-dollar investment into fracking, and it approved 50% more drilling permits than what we saw under Trump's admin. So I think that she was pretty...
Would you personally consider that hypocrisy or growth, just from your own standpoint and how you view things from your lens?
Yeah, I actually view that as growth.
Okay.
I
mean, I appreciate when people learn and grow. I'm in the energy industry myself for 20 years, so it does directly affect me. So I was curious of your perception on that.
Yeah, well, I don't think I think that she holds the same values, but after like 4 years serving in such a highly regarded public office of the vice presidency of the country, like she just learned how to be more effective in like getting what she wanted to be done. And then, like, also, I feel like the Biden-Harris administration was much more effective with passing policy than Trump's administration. And I'd attribute a lot of that to the fact that I don't think that Trump is as able to work with Democrats as, say, like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden would be able to work with Republicans.
Honestly, I don't think Trump was able to work with GOP in his first term.
Yeah. That was true for the first 2 years.
I do think he's more able to now that the parties have kind of shifted. Overton window has shifted slightly again. And the GOP is kind of on decline, thank God. Old bucks.
Yeah. Oh, maybe like another reason why I don't like Trump is because I heavily disagree with mass deportation.
Okay. I mean, I'm all for it because of how many people came into this country illegally over the last 4 years. Also, I work in an industry where I'm being hurt because of they would rather give jobs to people who can pay them significantly less. I work in an electrical field.
Yeah.
I can't go into the union right now and get out and come out and have a job because they would have to pay me $40 to $50 an hour, and they would rather pay somebody $20 an hour to do my exact job.
Yeah. No, man, I think that is a genuine issue. But I guess my question for you would be, what do you think causes that issue?
What, like migration?
The fact that undocumented migrants have lower wages on average.
Because they'll pretty much just take anything because they want to have a better life in this country. And there are companies and there are owners out here that will give them room and board and then pay them $20 an hour. So that makes up the other $20 to $30 that they would have to pay me.
So
they make $3 a basket that they pick. They average about 10 a day, so it's really cheap wages.
It's not merely the fact that they want a better life in America that leads to the idea that they have lower wages on average. Because, like, for instance, legal migrants also come here for a better life, and they don't have lower wages. What gives undocumented migrants lower wages is the fact that they have less bargaining powers. They're not citizens or residents. Like you said that you're a part of a union. Unions exist to give employees more bargaining power with employers to achieve better benefits and higher wages. Yep. So, in other words, higher levels of bargaining power accounts for higher wages. And so my solution is that we give all undocumented migrants in America that have not committed violent crimes a pathway to residency or citizenship. So then all of a sudden they have the same amount of bargaining power as you or I. So then all of a sudden they'll have the same ability to demand the same wages as you or I. And I think that is a way to fix the fact that they get lower wages on average, hurting individuals such as yourself.
I understand your point. I respect it. But it doesn't work like that. It can't work like that, even though the immigration process is flawed. I'll say that all day long. It's absolutely flawed and needs a rework. But giving amnesty for anybody who's not a violent criminal is not the way to go, because that's a slap in the face of my family who came here legally, even though they came through the country legally in a time where it was a lot easier to come into this country. Both sides of my family. My Irish side came here well before Ellis Island and everything like that, the legal way. And then my Italian side came here through Ellis Island. My Irish side was actually enslaved to build the railroads in the United States as well. It's a slap in the face of the people who came here legally. No, we need to absolutely rework the immigration process, the asylum process, all the other processes to become citizens, close our border down, get everybody out of here, and make them do it the right way. That's what I'm all in favor for. I'm in favor for immigration altogether. Legal immigration altogether.
Yeah.
Dean, is there a negative impact on the people that are trying to come across legally and in queue with the asylum judges being bowed up with illegal cases, would they be able to work the same cases? Or honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, so I will respond to the host first, and then to your comment. I think that both are important.
Sure, bud.
So I have like two ideas as it responds to you, Enzo. My first thought is I do agree that like legal migrants are getting slapped in the face. I just don't think it's by undocumented migrants. I think it's by our government. Like the root cause of undocumented migration is how bad the legal means of entry into America are. Like nobody wants to be an undocumented migrant. It's just that the legal means are either like too expensive or take too long. So I think because a lot of the culpability falls on the shoulders of our government, that if anything, we owe it to both the migrants currently going through the legal processes and the undocumented migrants that are already in our country that haven't committed violent crimes to give them an expedited pathway to residency or citizenship. And then, like, a second point here, as you said, well, it's a slap in the face to migrants that have already gone the lengthy legal process to just give the undocumented migrants the expedited path now. And I think I disagree. I think, like, a core value of America is making life easier for children than it was for us. And I don't think because we're finally doing something that's good not only for our country, not only for our economy, and not only for the people in our economy and the productive providers that are undocumented migrants, but also for offering all new legal migrants that same expedited pathway to residency or citizenship, that it's somehow unjust because other people have had to suffer more in the past. Like, I kind of view this synonymously the same, that like newly 18, 19, and 20-year-old women in 1920s shouldn't have gotten the right to vote because there was probably like 80-year-old women that never got to voice their opinion for a vote all throughout their life that felt like slapped in the face. You know what I mean? I think that we're supposed to make things easier as our country progresses, and we're not supposed to hold back progression because it's a slap in the face and unfair to generations before us.
I mean, I get your stance on it, but you can't really compare women not being able to vote to illegal immigrants coming into this country. That's two different playing fields.
Well, the comparison is more so just like making life better for those that come after us than those that came before us. And just because we make life better for those that come after us doesn't make it.
There's legal ways to do it. Just because
those that came before us.
And our priority is for U.S. citizens first. Unfortunately, fortunately.
Well, if you want to put the U.S. citizens first, that's why you should agree with mass amnesty, because mass amnesty is really good for our country and everybody in it, including citizens, or actually predominantly citizens.
If rates hadn't been so high the last 4 years, it put us over a tipping point, I think, economically, and ability to house people, just based on pure statistics of an average of, do you agree on the average about 1.6 million came in last year, but we were only able to build 1.3 million new homes a year. It does create a negative pressure on the housing industry, which may or may not be a moral argument. I get it from both sides, but it's just from an economical standpoint, it does put added pressure on. And then if you take into account trying to take care of our own people, veterans, homeless, etc., it exacerbates that problem. So just from that standpoint, I feel like it does kind of enter into calculus.
Yeah, sure. I understand your point. I think that here's my thoughts on it. So first and foremost, I think that we have to understand that when we have more people entering into the labor force, that we just have more people that could, create CPUs, work on electricity, or build houses. And I think what we really need right now is housing affordability policy to incentivize developers to build more houses because there's an issue. And the only candidate in the race that had that was Kamala Harris.
I would hit it from a different aspect. I would focus more on the corporate investing personally, and limiting that to just needs of corporation themselves and not using it as a investment vehicle, and renting back housing to the U.S. citizens.
Yeah. She also had that policy included within the housing affordability policy.
Yes, because it's not BlackRock. What's the other one?
Vanguard.
No, it's Black something. It's just a subsidy of BlackRock.
Well, and
that does the actual housing.
I'm
sorry, I'll look it up later.
So Kamala Harris ran on, the $25,000 subsidy that I thought was great, as well as she ran on limiting massive corporations from buying single-family homes. And I mean, she was like seriously the only candidate in the race with any housing affordability policy to address the crisis.
Yeah, we're not completely against all of her policies.
Yeah, we're not. There's some gems in there. Like I said, she ran on some good things.
Yeah. What's up?
Who's the next Democratic who do you think's gonna be the best running candidate in the next election?
Hopefully,
is it still too soon to tell?
Well, my hope is Pete Buttigieg.
I can see that.
I really like him.
I would rather see him over Newsom, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, fair. Yeah. No, I think that The likely outcome is Pete Buttigieg and AOC are going to be like the two main candidates in the 2028 primary.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there.
That'd be some good competition.
Yeah.
I'm a big Buttigieg fan. How do you guys feel about like Donald Trump unironically suggesting that he's considering running for a third time?
It's not gonna fucking happen. I say it all the fucking time. You're gonna need an act of you're gonna need an act of Congress, the executive, and then the legislative branch. Yes, I know all three, Dean. You didn't have to ask me that.
Some anti-aging pills.
Yeah. And then you're gonna need an act of God himself to come down here and to make that happen. And then again, I wouldn't vote for him because I was very critical about Biden being 82 years old running again. So I'm not going to make myself look like a hypocrite at the end of the day.
No,
Yeah,
I
absolutely not.
I actually agree that I don't think it'll happen either, and that's not just because of like
So far-fetched.
the barriers that are blocking it, but then also just like his age. I mean,
Exactly.
he's over like
He's aged out, man.
like the
aged out.
average like life expectation of a male, so he could just die from natural causes. But I don't really think many people will support him for a third term because
I won't.
and because
No, I won't.
the Second Amendment. But like I still think the fact that he holds a position that he's considering it, and he kind of went in depth with like the ways that he could get it done today with him.
Did you say the Second Amendment?
The 22nd.
Okay, my bad.
Oh,
I was like, whoa, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, no, don't worry.
He's way too old. It's never
Too
gonna
soon,
happen.
too soon.
Like, let's just be honest.
Too soon.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. No.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah, well, what does the Second Amendment have to do with being the president? Goddamn.
Fight.
Yeah, no.
Oh my god.
It's funny. It's funny.
Okay, sorry. That's
Fight was wild.
But anyways, I just think the fact that he kind of has that virtue, that like he wants to, and he's already like finding ways that he can get it done, is like very worrisome.
I think
I'm not
JD
even gonna
Vance.
play into it.
A lot
Yeah, I
of
think
people would
JD
vote for JD Vance and over Donald Trump.
Yeah, I said I would vote for JD over Trump if he had a third term. 100%. Because all right, let's be honest. Like we were saying about Biden and his cognitive decline at 82 years. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 4 years? Because when Biden first came into office, I'll say it all day long. His first 2 years, he was sharp as a tack. He was sharp like VP Biden.
Dude was a kid, man.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'll say that all day long. The last 2 years though is when he completely Papa Jojo left. That wasn't VP Biden.
The media didn't catch on.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Had they done it, then Kamala would have had a full election cycle to run.
Well, I wish that Biden would have just honored what he said before his term started. He like pledged to only be a one-term president. And I think the fact that he switched up on that ended up being really bad for the Democrats and lawyers. But something I did want to ask is, can you guys try to convince me that Trump was a better pick than Harris?
Who wants to go first? Keith, you want to go?
For me, it's biased because of my energy industry background, and Kamala flip-flopping on policies that directly does affect fuel prices, and especially from from a green policy. Fracking does help because in the old days we would just punch holes in the ground, move the rig, punch holes, and then try to bring up whatever we could. Nowadays, we use one small, about football field size of land, and then go down, drill out directional, sideways, near 10 to 15,000 feet, depending. So you're only using the same size of land, and then you're going off in all these different directions. And then you go down and just pump high-pressure water, about 10,000 psi with sand. And after the sand impregnates the formation, it literally splits the ground with that much pressure. Then you pump the water out, the sand remains in those cracks to hold them open. You're able to extract all those fluids, whereas before you'd literally grape the land and cause massive environmental damage. So her being against that, although there have been, and I live in Texas, I'll dox myself there, there's been earthquakes, so that is a negative side. It's correlation, not proven causation, but I'm willing to concede on that. That policy alone was enough to hurt our energy independence and raise fuel prices, which, it affects everything from transportation on. And if you affect transportation, you're affecting every price in the United States.
I mean, I'd say that like we could assume like a very high level of confidence that she wouldn't have banned fracking. In fact, I'd be very comfortable with stating that she would have been like pretty good for fracking and like drilling oil. The reason why I say that is because like the one indicator that we have that she was against fracking was when she ran for president in 2019. She ran an anti-fracking platform, but so did Biden. And then when Biden and Harris got into office, they like straight up rug pulled environmentalists. Next thing you know, they're passing bills that are making $1 million investment into fracking. They're approving 50% more drilling permits than Trump's admin did, and they were hitting. And then they produced more oil for a year straight than the max amount of oil production we ever experienced in Donald Trump's admin in 1 month. And she indicated multiple times throughout her campaign that she wouldn't have really strayed too far away from Biden policy, so she would have kept straight on that same warpath. Not to mention, she was a tie-breaking vote behind the Inflation Reduction Act, which was a bill that specifically invested millions of dollars into fracking. And on top of that, I think she indicated at her debate with Trump that she would have kept very similar energy policy. So I'd argue that a position that she would be bad for the energy sect out of her anti-fracking sentiments held in 2019 is baseless when you kind of consider the facts I just shared of the admin over the last 4 years.
Unfortunately, the price is not directly linked to the presidency; it's linked to the actual WTI, West Texas crude price, and the cancellation of all the contracts for government land directly affected exploration. So all we have now are wells that have been pre-drilled and being brought back into production, since they canceled the ability to create new leases in very viable oil-rich lands. They're having to basically use leftovers the last 4 years. So we're going to see the effects of that. And fracking has decreased, just from an inside standpoint.
I don't think so. Because I mean, under the last 4 years, like jobs in oil have gone down, and like to be fair, they've been going down since the 80s. But production has gone up.
They fluctuate. It's almost a 4-year cycle.
Which means like that their drilling means have gotten more efficient over the last 4 years, and I don't really see how drilling means can get more efficient if you
drilling and production are completely separated, though. Just so you know.
Wait, when you say production, are you talking about like
bringing wells online? On my side, the drilling side, we actually poke the holes in the ground, and then we case the well, bring them in, and then the crew comes in to either frack them if they need it, or bring them into production, put the pump jack up.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking about production. I'm talking about like production of crude oil.
It was the drilling side that Biden's policy screwed up. The production side is they do what they do. Well, whatever they have available.
I think that the Biden-Harris administration kind of moved where they wanted to drill. Like they put more of an emphasis on like not drilling in certain locations on offshore sites. They put more of an emphasis.
But unfortunately, those are the most rich and lucrative for both the consumer and the oil companies, which F the corporations, I get you. But they're so much easier to produce and higher flow that it was a big deal, unfortunately.
Well, I
maybe
think
Kamala wouldn't have done that, but Biden definitely did.
I think that you might be able to critique like the specific practices of the Biden administration, but because they still approved 50% more permits than Trump, and we were still just drilling more and more and more and more.
Yes, but it's kind of like you're looking for water and you approve permits in the desert to search for water versus a coastal area.
So then why do you think we produced more for a year straight under Biden and Harris than we did at the peak under Trump's? And that was after them rebounding from like a 10-year low in crude oil.
We had to
again, it's just a separation between the
strategic
production side.
Wait, I'm so sorry. Two different answers there.
We had to resupply our strategic reserves. That's when they started drilling more, because they had to refill what we sent over to China to curb inflation.
So they were drilling more month after month from the day they walked into office until like mid 2023, where they kind of ping-ponged between 13.2 and 13.6 thousand barrels of oil per day. And that's just coming from
talking about oil, or are we talking about natural gas? Because natural gas, I'll agree with you. They were drilling more for natural gas.
I'm talking about
when
oil.
they first came in.
Natural gas is not the moneymaker.
I'm talking about crude oil. So I'm referencing like the graph that you can find on the EIA website, like searching up crude U.S. oil production. Like if you look at like 2021 January to like January of 2023, it's a constant incline. And then for like all of 2023, they were sitting at like above 13,000 barrels of oil per day, which is more than the max that was produced in Trump's, which was December of 29. Of 19 at like 12.9 thousand barrels of oil per day.
Right, yeah, this production side, not poking new holes. The Biden policy affected poking new holes in the ground, not the pulling it out of the ground.
I don't know if I'm willing to believe that just because they approved 50% more like new permits to poke new holes. I mean, were they just never
Right, but
like,
at the same time, like I said,
refund?
the permits, they took it away from oil-rich lands and approved the permits in less oil-rich lands.
Where
I
specifically?
know it might be splitting hairs. Offshore, mostly.
Offshore, and then they just moved them onshore. Yeah, I mean, I feel like
Gulf
that.
of America, air quotes.
I feel like that.
So I just brought it up right here on AlaskaBeacon.com. The levels of the past three presidents: Obama, Biden, Trump, Pence, Biden, Harris. So from Obama peaked at 9.4, Trump peaked at 12.3, 2020 still Trump 11.3, 2021 Biden 11.3, 2022 12 million flat, and then 12.9. That's 22-23 are the two highest, and that is after.
No, please go to the EIA website where you can see it month by month.
All right, let's,
Like, I mean, it's just like you'll get much more information.
I got you.
Are they including the redistribution of the oil reserves?
I all I know is it's just the production of crude oil, so it's just oil they pull out of ground, I think.
Okay. Like I said, I'm on the drilling side, so that side definitely affected my family personally. So I am a little bit biased on that standpoint.
Well, I feel like what probably impacted you was when we had rigs and refineries gone to shit from like drastically low costs of imported oil in the last year and a half of Trump's term, and then.
Oh, I'm not gonna lie. The international scene definitely plays an effect, and OPEC can wreck us.
For sure, like I mean,
It's all
especially for
a
you.
global game.
Would you admit, like in the last like year and a half of Trump's term, like it would just made so much more sense to buy oil abroad because of how significantly cheaper it was. That there's less of a reliance on U.S. producers, which probably negatively impacted you and your family.
Yes, but the reason behind that was strategic, and they purposely dropped their prices to make all the local independents drop out so they could suck them all up, kind of like an old school Rockefeller move
Well, I think what drove it was Donald
with
Trump.
Standard Oil.
I think what drove it was like A, less people were driving during the pandemic, and then B, Donald Trump like went in between Venezuela and Saudi Arabia, like negotiating lower and lower and lower prices. And they got so unsustainably low that it was bad for U.S. markets, which then caused Trump to go to OPEC and tell them to increase their output by 10% to bump it up a little bit more, so our domestic production could be a little bit higher. But anyway,
you're not wrong there, but also remember Canada and Venezuela both have a crappier oil that takes a lot more on the refinery side to make it worthwhile. We have light sweet crude. They have oil sands, which is it's very costly to produce it and actually get it to the people. So you have to have that cheap rate, like what we have in Canada, and you have to have that with Venezuela to make it worth actually producing. So they have to sell it to us cheap in order for it to match what we can produce locally. So there's a little bit of an offset there.
Wait, did you guys agree with the USMCA that Trump passed under his first term?
Bring it back up.
The USMCA, did you guys like that?
I'm bringing it up again. Don't remember what I'm talking about. Oh, his trade deals.
Yeah, it was.
And now he's like bitching because the trade deals was bad.
I mean,
yeah.
How did you feel about the
stupid.
USMCA? How did you feel about?
He's the one that fucking.
We're not going to
he's the one
sit here
that
and say he's
signed
perfect, bro.
it. Yeah, no.
Yeah, honestly,
I'm probably one of the most level-headed Trump supporters you'll talk to.
No, I will say I've actually enjoyed this conversation.
I've talked to you like a year ago too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just recently changed my name, so that's why you probably don't remember.
Like how Trump used his tariffs, like recently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I
It's
just
lost its
didn't.
novelty.
I didn't agree with it.
Yeah. Well, anything else that you guys want to go over?
Thank you for being not so crazy as you do in your lives. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
I like when you're not on your live.
I'm a little bit more theatrical in my own life.
Yeah, I know.
You do have to deal with some theatrical people in your defense.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's just like because I'm human, it's really hard for me to like calm
not
myself
match energy.
down. Well, I think
Yeah,
it's
calm yourself. You scream in your mic every time you get a fucking donation.
well, what it is, it's like I will have like just like the
I would
absolute
scream if I got a
most
donation.
insane rage baiters in the world request
I
up on
know.
my live.
I used to watch you in Parker.
We get 'em
I'm not
too,
gonna
dude.
lie.
Yeah.
You, Parker, Harry, and Chris honestly motivated me to do this. To wholeheartedly.
Well, I like to see more people in this space. I think that these discussions are important, especially when they're held in good faith. So I always appreciate it. I always appreciate
Yeah,
some of
man.
these lives. But I'm gonna go ahead and drop down, and hope that you guys have a good rest of your night.
Have a good one, dude.
Appreciate you, Dean.
Wake up, America!